As geologists, we, well, of course we do a lot of work here on the ground, but as you can see, we also do a lot of work up in the air. In fact, aerial photos are a good way to see the lateral moraines that we have in this area and to see just how widespread the karst topography is. In fact, it looks so different up here. You're able to see that these lateral moraines just stretch for miles down, up and down this canyon, which is very interesting.
Well, I think if we could just get off a little sample here. Maybe not. It's a pretty hard, like the reason I think it's hard for us to hammer this is because it's a rhyolite, which has a very intense hardness. There we go, we got a little sample here. You know, I want to be really careful with what I'm hammering because these are semi-precious stones, the rhyolites, and you could tell it's a rhyolite just from the color mostly, but you can also see in here a little bit of large crystallization.
And something interesting about this rock, as Matt was hammering it, you could tell that it does have a very hard, it's very dense. And the reason why is because it is a sheet silicate. And so the bonds actually form in a sheet manner. And so when you try to hit, it's actually bound on the entire sheet, which makes it pretty hard to break. Another thing to note is that we do have basalt included in there, which does tell a lot about the area and how it had regional extensive basaltic, mafic, and silicic eruptions. Okay, now what we have here, this is very interesting. This is actually a very localized regional uplift.
Right, but we're just kidding. It's just a fire pit.
It's true. Teenagers built this.
I know, seriously. Ernie, come on. Oh man.
You gotta have humor when you're in geology. I mean, this really gets to your head.
I know, really. All right. This hillside right here, you can tell there's a lot of rocks. And some might think that, as we talked about before, that it was the turbidite. But what it actually is the glaciation was occurring. But simultaneously, there was a lot of P-wave seismicity. And as we saw in Rock Canyon, which is pretty near to here, it was pretty severe P-wave seismicity. And so when those two things happen at the same time, you tend to get these little hillsides just full of rocks and gravel.
And in fact, what we see here is actually a very key, it indicates that we're going to have a large breccia deposit in a couple million years. And the reason I say that is because if you look at the rocks, a large portion of them are angular, and the ones that are not angular will probably become angular through extensive seasonal glaciation. And so as the rock is cemented, we will see that, and probably also some conglomerate deposits here as well.
You know, and it's interesting because even in these parts, you can find seasonal glaciation very frequently in the months of even June and July.
All right, now what we have here is another prime example of that periodic glaciation that we were talking about. As you can see, higher up in the mountain, that glaciation is still around. And in periods, it actually does reach the valley floor here. And so what we do get is these large terminal moraines. And that is indicative of just the magnitude of glaciation that we have in this area.
Right, you just take a look in the back and you see this one right here, and then you have a larger, even larger recessional moraine in the back. And according to Dr. Rupert, how the glaciation was much larger than previously thought, we're actually concluding now that Mount Baldy there in the background was essentially a terminal moraine at one point. And we could say that because this erratic we were playing with over there, and it's very, very large, and it would take thousands and thousands of meters of ice in order to move that down here to this valley.
Can't believe if anyone's going to believe
It's interesting. Jared, what he got there was just another shot of those terminal moraines we were talking about. You could see kind of a ladder effect that you get from the recession of the ancient enormous glacier.
And what you also can see are various sinkholes scattered throughout the valley, and that just tells us how extensive the karst topography is in this region and just how dangerous it is to be hiking in the area. I mean, sinkholes can be scattered even just under this sea cliff where we're standing right now.
You know, the olivine-enriched soils here really make for an abundant hillside of grass. And so the deer that you see here on the hillside, they really enjoy those olivine mineral flavors that come with that olivine enrichment. And that clearly comes because in here, we must have some sort of basaltic intrusion, just like we saw in Rock Canyon as well.
Dzisiaj wesele, jutro poprawiny, a za rok będą grzizny. Hej!
It's really close. You know, this is really interesting what we got here. You know, I think what this is, what it must be, is an ancient sea cliff. You know, and the reason I say that is because if you've ever seen the movie The Princess Bride, this looks just like the cliff that he climbed up when he got done sailing in the sea.
And they really do look identical. And the reason why the sea cliffs have that distinct look is because all of these are ancient marine deposits. And so what we get is just a tower of rock. And as the sea level drops several thousand feet, you get these sea cliffs that don't, as you know, limestone is very resistant to chemical weathering. And so these cliffs are able to stay millions of years without very much erosion. In fact, probably several million years ago when the sea used to be here, it probably looked exactly the same.
You know, Arnie, I think this would be a really good time to show our audience what you found.
Indeed. As you guys know, so we've been telling you, this has been a very volcanically active area. It's just a hotbed of eruptions and such. And so what we get, in fact, what I found here, are several comatite inclusions. Well, these are very ultramafic. And so this whole area could be mined for comatite, but of course it's not worth very much, so that's why people haven't done it. However, as we do explore alternative fuels, we'll see a lot more mining in this area.
Hey, it's really interesting what we've got here. This is one of the unique things of Dry Canyon, is that what we had originally was an embedding of ore right here in the sea cliff. But what they've done is they've caused a metathesis reaction, which has actually been able to allow them to form chains from the natural ore deposit.
And in fact, sea cliffs are very known for their high content in banded iron. Yeah. And so rock climbers, the local rock climbers here at Dry Canyon, they like to use the banded iron formations to their benefit. And in fact, you'll find the strongest rock here because of that iron that is included in the rock.
Right.
Now, if you look at the sea cliff also, you'll notice that we have these white striation looking things. And now, many geologists will tell you that this is actually calcite. However, I just had a piece right here, and this is a prime example of saltwater encroachment in the sea. In fact, if you'll take a lick at it, you can really tell that it has a salty flavor to it. And that just tells us just how important the groundwater is to our ecosystem and how devastating saltwater encroachment can be.
You don't mind if I take a lick, do you?
Sure, go for it.
Let's see here. Yeah, it's really strong. They must not have tasted it if they still think that that's calcite.
Yeah, and in fact, if you notice the salt taste, it actually did have that sulfur taste with it also. And that's what just makes it so strong.
All right, well, we want to head down pretty soon because we know that sulfur smell that Ernie was talking about really is attractive to skunks. And you know, just like geologists, we want to be careful about our surroundings. So we're going to head down pretty soon.
Yeah, in fact, we better go right now.
Okay. Yeah, I'm smelling a little something out there. Let's go.
Now this slope we have right here is very interesting. It's a prime example of slope failure. And what contributes to it is that we have an angular unconformity which brings all these rocks down. And so in order to keep it from the trail, we've had to put some heavy-duty railroad ties to keep the sediment and to keep the breccia from overtaking the trail.
Right, but even though we're geologists, it's really easy to tell even the age of when they put these in. You know, you just kind of give it a little taste, you know. And you could tell it's probably just about 23 years ago, which is actually about when I was born. So that's an interesting trivia.
And yeah, it's just interesting, I guess. You know, this trip was very interesting. We were able to see just how widespread the glaciation was, and I think a lot of geologists really don't realize just how significant the glaciers were. But Dr. Rupper really nailed it when she said that the glaciers were a lot larger than previously thought.
Right, another interesting conclusion that we've come to is the interaction between ancient and modern life. You know, we've seen a lot of the ancient sea cliffs, but we've also been able to see a lot of the modern man-made things and also the modern animal life. And together with those, we've been able to see how the geology and the life today interacts.
And well, that's been the conclusion for our episode. Thank you for joining us on Discovering Your Planet. Join us next time as we go on our expedition to Goblin Valley and discover some of the geological processes that have formed that place.
Right, and we'll discover your planet.
Until next time.
Bo dzisiaj babcia córeczka dzień żeni. Dzisiaj wesele, jutro poprawiny, a za krok będą grzizny.